India's freedom fighter embraced Vande Mataram, but Congress in the 1937 decided to sing just two stanzas of this song? And why almost 90 years later, again this song finds itself at the center of political and legal controversy? Recently, the Congress party, that is also referred as a Grand Old Party of India, it has decided it will only sing the first two stanzas of Vande Mataram. So, what is the reason behind it? What are the other four stanzas say? And why such decision has been taken by Congress? We will try to understand and decode in more detail as such. To some extent, we can say the answer to this question also will explain how India as a nation has emerged after the British independence, how India's secularism and nationalism has been shaped over so many years after independence. So, let us understand first of all the context behind this particular topic. Now, if you look at the Vande Mataram song itself, the origin of this song can be traced back to the composition in year 1875 by one of the most known scholars from East India, Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay. He rendered this particular song and later put in the Anandmat in the year 1881. The song was written in Sanskritized Bengali, we can say. The novel Anandmat, which was published in year 1881, it is a story of the late 18th century Sannyasi rebellion. Sannyasi rebellion was seen in the region of Bengal. It was an uprising of people against the colonial empire, that was British, and also the local Muslim landowners, and also we can call as local Muslim leaders as such. The meaning of this entire song, if you talk about the Vande Mataram, in English can loosely be translated to Mother, I bow to thee. So, this is a kind of reverence to the Mother Earth or Mother India in more this concretized form. If we talk about Vande Mataram and freedom struggle, we have seen that though the song was first published in year 1881 in the novel Anandmat, but the song became very popular during the Swadeshi movement that was launched between 1905 to 1908. Swadeshi movement, as we know, through the freedom struggle of India, through the history of the freedom movement in India, it was a best example of anti-colonial nationalism in the early days before freedom movement was launched in the full scale as such. That's why it also became one of the favorite songs for freedom fighters. It provided them a sense of solidarity to fight against a common enemy, that was British Empire at the time. It was this region which provided a nationalist color to this particular song that was written for a particular novel. Now, if you look at the why first two stanzas were preferred, we know that recently we talk about this stand taken by Congress party. So, the Congress spokesperson Supriya Srinath, she has stated that we will follow 1937 CWC resolution, and because 1937 CWC resolution clearly states that only first two stanzas should be sung, that's why Congress would always sing two stanza and would ignore the other stanza, especially the remaining four stanzas as such. The reason behind this is related to the fact that India at the time of independence had to also maintain balance between the interests of the Muslims and interests of Hindus. And also, if you look at the viewpoint of Gandhiji, it is seen that he believed that if you sing other four stanzas, it might hurt the Muslim sentiment, that would further cause more quarrel and confrontation among both communities, which he did not wanted to risk. So, if you talk about the perspective of this particular song, the motherland imagery that is portrayed through the song, again if you think Vande Mataram, Mother I bow to thee, is also a reflection of something that we can call as the idol worship, which is not allowed in the Muslim religion. It seems to be contrary to the concept of Islam, where you can only worship Allah and any kind of idol worship is considered not good. So, beauty and benevolence also this song reflect less explicitly religious in nature. That is why the first two stanzas are preferred. Here the religious nature of song does not clearly manifest itself, does not clearly express itself. That's why its acceptance can be wider compared to the other four stanzas. Not only this was decision of the Congress Working Committee, but to some extent Tagore and Gandhiji also has provided support in this particular case. Now, let us try to understand what was the viewpoint of Tagore and Gandhiji as far as the singing of the national song is concerned. Now, if we talk about the Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose, he wrote a letter to Tagore and he asked his opinion about singing of this song before the 1937 resolution. Tagore has stated that I admire the first portion of the song, the initial first two stanzas of the song, as it is a clear example of tenderness and devotion an individual can show toward the motherland, toward Mother India as such. At the same time, Gandhiji also agreed that for him, he has written his viewpoint in the Harijan, the well-known magazine journal that he used to publish. So in that particular journal, Gandhiji has clearly established that for him Vande Mataram is always an anti-imperialist cry. There should not be any problem in accepting this as a national song and even in singing it. But the problem is because of the division that we are seeing in the Indian society, where society is being divided, where the entire nation is being divided on the religious line between Hindus and Muslims. At the same time, in the early days, the fear of partition was looming large, and that's why the Gandhiji's objective was to ensure that there is a kind of solidarity between both communities of India, there is a kind of harmony which can be established between both communities of India, and singing of the entire Vande Mataram can to some extent disturb that harmony. That's why he stated that for him it is just an anti-imperialist song. It is not inherently a Hindu song, it is not inherently an anti-Muslim song, but at the same time you have to avoid conflict. So you want to avoid conflict. His view was clear in the Harijan, that if at a particular assembly Vande Mataram is being sung, we have to ensure that at a mixed gathering, mixed gathering here means Hindu and Muslim, both crowds are present here. If anyone objects to the singing of song, then that should not be sung anymore, that should be discontinued, and any such objections should be taken into consideration. So though what we can understand, Tagore and Gandhi did not have any individual problem for the song. Both of them consider this song to be highly devotional nature. It is referring to the motherland, and it is also an anti-imperialist song that was largely against the British government, but because of the nature of the song, because of the words that was used in the song, especially in the last four stanzas, both of them have stated the view and have taken the view that we can ignore it. Now the question is that why later stanzas are the major problem? What are these later stanzas containing? So third stanza we talks about the arms and defense, where many people from India would take arms and defend the motherland. Now this defense of motherland largely is seen is against the Muslim empire or Muslim emperors as such. Fourth stanza also talk about the motherland whose statue or whose statue will be present or will is available in the shrines itself, located in the shrines itself. Fifth stanza equate the motherland with the goddess Durga, Lakshmi and Saraswati. So that is deification of this stanza, deification of this line itself. To some extent, if you look at these stanzas, many critics argue that it reflects Hindu religious imagery, and that's why they have concern over the Islamic monotheism, because in Islam worshipping any deity, worshipping in the idol of deities is something that is not tolerable, and that's why these stanzas had to be dropped. Now if you look at again the Bankim Chandra Chattopadhyay, if you talk about the Sanskritized Bangla, Twamhi Durga Das Praharatna Dharani Kamal Kamal Dal Viharini Vani Vidya Dani. Now what it translates into, that you are Durga bearing 10 weapons, you are Lakshmi who dwells upon the lotus, you are Saraswati, the giver of knowledge, I bow to you, I bow to you. Now such kind of bowing is something that Islamic community, Muslim community is not very favorable of, and this has been recorded by Tagore's statement or letter that he wrote to Netaji Subhash Chandra Bose. In that letter he has clearly expressed that by looking at these stanzas we can understand it might cause problem in the Muslim community, it might hurt their sentiments, and it might not be acceptable to them. So that's why decision of dropping these later stanzas were taken. Now we talk about the religious and historical context. We know that Anand Math was a novel where this particular stanzas were published at first. So in Anand Math, Sannyasi rebellion, it has referring to Sannyasi rebellion also takes an important place here, because if you look at this entire rebellion, it was not only against the British colonial empire, it was also a rebellion where Muslims were portrayed as adverse. The narrative was also built around it. Motherland, on the other hand, is not only a kind of secular image here. If you look at the Vande Mataram, it is believed that it has imagery of Hindu goddess. So when Muslims are singing Vande Mataram song, they might be worshipping or they might be bowing to Hindu goddess imagery, which was not acceptable to them. Later verses has a more clear religious interpretation compared to the first two verses, which seems neutral in nature. If we talk about the recent historian Tanika Sarkar, she has clearly taken a view that the later verses of Vande Mataram is a kind of call to war where all Hindus or Hindu community has to take up weapons, they have to unite and they have to fight the adversary, which is British and Muslims as well. That's why after the independence, such kind of song should not be accepted, or stanza should not be accepted. That is one of the prevailing view. Now the debate is not only that is taking place in the current time. This debate also emerged in the early days after independence, when in the parliament, or basically that time constituent assembly we can say, many of the scholars, for example many of the members of the constituent assembly, they were preferring that Vande Mataram should be taken as a national anthem of India. We know today the national anthem of India is Jan Gan Man. So rather than Jan Gan Man, national anthem should be Vande Mataram. This was also reflected in the view of H.K. Kamath, for example. So between 1947 to 1950, lot of discussions and deliberations around this issue was conducted, but overall in the end it was decided that Jan Gan Man would be selected as a national anthem. The proponent of this view was the first Prime Minister of India, Jawaharlal Nehru. Now, the reason why he accepted Jan Gan Man or chose Jan Gan Man as a national anthem is because of the orchestration concern. Nehru was of view that playing orchestra for national anthem is very important, and if you put Vande Mataram, playing orchestra for Vande Mataram is much more difficult and complex compared to Jan Gan Man. That was his viewpoint, and that was his reason why he preferred Jan Gan Man. On the other hand, many of the members of Constitutional Assembly they disagree with this particular view of Nehru. They stated that if orchestration of Vande Mataram is a problem, it can easily be solved if you bring more expert as such. It can be modified and all that. But anyway, on 24 January 1950, Rajendra Prasad, who was the first president of India, he declared that Constituent Assembly has accepted Jan Gan Man as the national anthem and Vande Mataram as national song. So with this particular decision, the debate, at least in the early days, came to a final conclusion, even though many members were not happy with it. When you talk about national song versus national anthem, as we have discussed, Vande Mataram, national song, Jan Gan Man got the status of national anthem. Bankim Chandra was the creator of the Vande Mataram song, while we know that Jan Gan Man was written by Ravindranath Tagore as such. However, at the same time, Rajendra Prasad in the Constituent Assembly, while addressing it, he stated that both would enjoy equal status. Just because their characterization is different, it does not mean that one is lower in status compared to other as such. And the reason is simple, because both of them clearly, unequivocally evokes the national pride, the national unity, and a common fight against the British that finally culminated in the independence on 15th August 1947. That's why both of these songs have their own unique place in the heart of millions and millions of Indians. Now, why this debate again has emerged today? The reason is because Ministry of Home Affairs recently has published a protocol where any gathering would result in the singing of all 6 stanzas of Vande Mataram. This is 2026 legal political debate background, or we can say the genesis behind the legal political debate. And also the government has brought in National Honour Amendment Act 2026. Now, what is the main provision of this act is that now Vande Mataram will have a similar protection. The similar kind of protection that is extended to national anthem, that is Jan Gan Man, would now be extended to Vande Mataram. Now, what does it mean? It means that if anyone is intentionally disrupting the singing of Vande Mataram, it would be considered as offence in the eyes of law. Not only that, even if the singing is going to take place, but someone has started to disrupt the proceedings, someone has stopped the singing in the initial state itself, that also would be considered as an offence. So any kind of disruption, either in the middle of the song or in the early part of the song, any disruption would be offence as such. In the context of this entire development, the Congress leaders, we have seen Jairam Ramesh, he has made a view that if we talk about the 1947 to 1950, when the debate between national song and national anthem was going on, that time when the decision was taken, it was decision taken by collective effort and will of the Constituent Assembly. So the decision to declare Jan Gan Man as national anthem and to also declare Vande Mataram as a national song was taken after taking the entire Constituent Assembly in contents. However, he alleges that in this particular decision there is no parliamentary approval, because government has simply published this guidelines, published this particular protocol for all 6 stanzas. That's why it lacks any parliamentary approval, any legislative approval. That's why Congress would keep adhering to the spirit of the CWC resolution of 1937 and would only sing the first 2 stanzas of the Vande Mataram. So that is all what we can understand about the entire debate between Vande Mataram and the Jan Gan Man. I hope you understand that why or when this debate originated and what is the reason why it has become a legal and political controversy. That's all about this particular video. I hope you like the video. If you like the video, please hit the like button, share it with fellow aspirants, as well as subscribe to our channel for more such helpful content. Thank you very much.